Hey everybody, welcome to the Forest School Podcast. This podcast is all about exploring the fascinating world of forest school education and sharing our evolving perspectives on this ever-changing field. We want to take a moment at the beginning of this episode to thank you, our dedicated listeners, for joining us. But before we dive into this episode, we'd like to address something important. If you're just joining us, or if you've been with us since the beginning, you may have noticed that some of our earlier episodes sound a bit different. The Forest School Podcast began as our own personal journey through the world of education, and those early episodes reflect a time when we were still learning the ropes. While we're proud of our growth and progress through the years, it's essential to acknowledge that those early episodes may not meet the technical and content quality standards of our more recent episodes. Education is a field that's constantly evolving, and so are our views and insights. Our early episodes served as a public diary of our learning journey, complete with all the mistakes and learning experiences that came with it. We believe that it's essential to keep these episodes available for posterity as they remind us how far we've come. However, if you're here for the most up-to-date discussions on education and our best quality recordings, we'd encourage you to explore our more recent episodes. Our views have evolved, our production quality's improved, and we're excited to share our current perspectives and knowledge with you. So, whether you're here to trace our journey from the beginning, or you're seeking the latest insights into education, we're thrilled to have you along for the ride. Thank you very much for being part of the Forest School community. Let's embark on this journey together.
It says it at the end.
Anyway,
Should we do the thingy?
Let's start. Hi everyone, welcome to the Forest School Podcast, and we're here today at the Forest School Association Southwest Gathering. Where are we? Where is this place? I don't know the name of it.
Something beginning with B.
It's near Blandford, isn't it?
Derweston.
We can't obviously give our exact
It's the
information away.
Dorset Coppice Group's headquarters.
Yeah. We're somewhere there.
And it's
We're
very
in the
lovely,
woods.
and it's beautiful weather, and it's very still. It's amazing. And so we've got more people. So shall we just quickly say who we are? So to my left we have, my name's Megan Adams, and I've got a company called Wild Times based in Cornwall.
Nice.
And that's
I'm Lewis, you know me.
That's Lewis.
Are we going around the circle?
I'm Judy Simpson. I'm Forest School Leader at Redbus Nursery in Bristol.
I'm Kay Watts, and I've got a non-profit forest school in Shepton Mallet, in that sort of area, called Holly and Hawthorne.
Nice. And we're very broadly, I guess, talking about success stories that we've had. But it was so this is what I was going to say to you when I was walking up, and we were trying to think of success stories, and in my head, immediately all that I thought of was like teaching successes where a kid has regurgitated information back at me. So like a really recent, I'm using hyphen, air quotey things, like success story was a kid said, it was something about owls. We looked at an owl box, and it was a kid that like 90% of the time you go, he is not listening to me. You know that kid, he's off in his own little world.
Yeah.
And then he just came out with something about owls that I can't even remember what it was now, but he just went like, oh yeah, yes. And I went, yeah, how'd you know that? And he went, well, you told me. I was like, oh shit, you listened to me, do you?
Yes, you remember.
But that's not a success. That's not a broad, holistic success story, is it? That is a.
Why not? It was for him. Obviously,
No, I don't
we
think
don't
it
want
was.
people just to feed back the answer that's in our head. But he'd succeeded in pleasing you.
No, because it wasn't a like. I didn't ask a question. I wasn't being a teacher and saying, and where do they live or whatever.
No, he was telling you
Yeah.
Yeah.
proudly.
I think that success is where you share that knowledge. So when a child or an adult or someone who's learnt something then has the confidence to tell someone else that, to share what they know, completely unprompted, like that occasion. Yeah,
That's true.
that is true.
It's an interesting thing though to kind of work out what defines because I think especially with forest schooly sessions, you tend to, it's more of a like, you look back at the last however long you've had this group of children or that particular child, and it's not like you go, oh, but like we were saying in the car on the way here, isn't it? Children don't learn things and then immediately sit bolt upright and go, I can count to 4 now. You know, it's something that you as an adult look back at and go, I could not have given you a recipe and ingredients for this thing and left you alone and you make whatever it is. I couldn't have done that 8 weeks ago, 6 months ago, whatever it is.
I think those memorable positive moments are completely subjective for us, and they say as much about us as they do about the children, because those moments are happening all the time. It's just which moments we're receptive to and which have stuck in our heads over our long or short forest school journeys as practitioners, I suppose. So there'll be moments that I remember from my first year that probably similar things are happening now, but I'm not remembering them as much. So
I think when you come fresh out of training, the first kid that you teach to like split wood, in your head you're like, I taught a kid to do a thing. I am one with nature. I am the best pet. And now I'm like, we need loads of this wood. Like, come on, do you know what I mean? The success is definitely by whatever criteria you've got in your head
you need
at
to
the
think
moment.
about what you mean by success.
But that's going to mean a different thing.
Seems to be something that's making you happy.
But that's what that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. So that was the first thing that popped into my head. But very quickly I'm going, that is
what
my
is success? Is your criteria that a child has learnt to do something? Is that what you're judging your success by? Something they couldn't do, something they now could do. Is that success?
I think
it's a type of success.
Yeah.
What other
many
types?
would judge it that way, but I don't think as forest school leaders that we do.
So what are we saying success at forest school is?
Well, I think that's what we're saying.
Is it just that child actually sitting over there on their own, quietly looking at a tree?
Yes.
Feeling safe, feeling secure, not doing anything really, not making anything, not singing anything, but being himself in the woods.
I mean, I was obviously always inspired to do forest school in the first place, and when somebody explained to me, it was an ed psych that explained to me what it was. I was working with children with social emotional difficulties at the time, and I'm like, oh, that's my childhood, and that it's being lost, and I really want to get involved in that. But within the first couple of years, there were so many little successes and bigger successes that it just made me fueled my passion so much. And I have a real memory that sticks in my head of this boy who was 10 years old. In class he couldn't read, he was really struggling, getting really frustrated with it, and his class had kind of like almost put this metaphorical dunce's hat on him, do you know what I mean, and everything else like that. And I managed to persuade the school to take them out of the school setting into a woodland. I was helping somebody else with their training, so I'd been in a couple of years myself. And what was really, really interesting, he went in groups, so we would do half a class at a time, and he went with this group. And when we got out there, he could do all those activities. He could do the firelighting, he could do the campfire, he could do everything, and it almost flipped it over completely. And everybody started, he was beaming from ear to ear, and everybody started asking him, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? Can I be with you? And it was totally changed his life, and the beam, like I said, on his face was amazing. And that was just the first session, and you're like, wow, I haven't even started yet, and over the weeks and everything, his mum came in and said, it's this the only reason he wants to come to school, and all these things, and I think, like you're saying, as it goes on, these things still happen, but because they've happened time and time again, I just remember the first as a really significant thing and thinking, yes, I'm on the right journey. And I'm sure all of us who are here and who are listening to this will have children that, as you've told that story, another child that I haven't thought about for ages has immediately popped into my mind and gone, oh that's just like him. And similar situation working in a school. I think it really changed not only this child's peers' view of him, but also the staff. And it really challenged some of their preconceptions. And I know it's easy for me to say, kind of zooming in for a few hours in an afternoon, where actually this child has had relationships with the TA and the teacher, not only all day, but all week, all year, or whatever. And so it's very hard to just leave that at the door. But I definitely think that the forest school sessions for him were showing those members of staff
another view of him that was so much more positive.
I think forest school shows you the real person, no matter what age they are, from the child to the adult. I've had lots of adults that have come in and said how much it's given them.
Yes.
And adults have said to me, I didn't expect much when I came.
Yeah.
You know, and it leaves on I had this guy who was partially blind who used to come with his son because his son had, some issues, around his behaviour and things like that. So he thought, he was like, I better come with him. And it was very interesting because he didn't see himself as, necessarily as being able to do anything, but he was partially blind, so he could see the fire. So he kept the fire going.
Wow.
And eventually his confidence as a person built up, and he ended up contacting the Society for the Blind to see if they could help him find a job. So no matter what age you are, and the adults coming with these children are also getting something.
Why do we think that is? I know that's a massive question.
I was just going to say that I think it's I wondered if it was because we were just talking earlier about, like, what do you call it? Is it school, is it community, is it place of learning? But in a classroom, I mean, we refer quite often to classroom just because we're from teaching backgrounds, but like in a classroom, if the objective of the lesson, like this literary lesson, we are writing sentences of this type, you have a very binary, children that can, children that can't. But in a forest school setting, you've got the fire needs to be kept going, and this over here, and there's tree climbing over here, and there's so much more going on that it's not a like can and can't scenario, and it's a bit more maybe like the real world where you go, well, this is my niche, like this is what I can do.
But this is what I want to do today, actually. I don't want to do that thing. Like the mood I'm in and the place I'm at, I'm not going to try that thing right now, but I might try it another time. And the success-failure ratio.
Because in forest school we always make sure that they are small achievable tasks. So we guarantee virtual success, don't we? Because we never set a child something they're going to fail.
I disagree. I think sometimes I do.
Yeah,
I think
with my 3-year-olds, I'm not going to set any of them up to fail.
I think setting up is a different thing though.
They are all going to achieve. If they're not achieving, if they're struggling too much and it's causing them concern, I've set the wrong target.
That's interesting.
I do think it's very important early on in forest school that the children get success, that they are successful. And it might be say with firelighting, everyone around someone is, and he's not managed to light the fire, or she's not managed to light the fire, and you stop, you do some finger stretching, you do something else, and then you come back to it. I do think I would not want that child to leave having had a negative experience in the woods or outdoors, because that it's not just a negative experience of the firelighting, but it's that whole day will be tainted. I will always try and help that child to succeed in certain things.
Or break the task into, well, you do that bit and I'll do this bit.
Yeah, or we work together. And we work together to do something, and then that gives them the confidence to try again on their own. I would like everyone to have success.
I think if I had a session where I had seen someone who hadn't succeeded at, they hadn't done this, and then they hadn't done this, and then they hadn't done this, and then they hadn't done this, I think that's a very different experience to an isolated thing that they cannot do. Because I think if you, for lack of a better word, facilitate or help or do whatever, there's a kind of an invisible line at which point I think you're taking away the achievement of the thing. So like climbing into some of our tree houses is difficult, but I wouldn't ever. But no amount of that 3-year-old struggling really hard and going, I cannot get in it. And I go, no, you're right. But one day you will be bigger and you'll be able to get it. So I think
one day you'll find the strategy. If I just lift you up and put you in the treehouse, I've robbed you of that feeling of doing it.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. But that's where I think if you're talking about targets and you setting the task and you setting the thing, that's very different, because in that scenario, if you've set the target of, right, I'd like you all to light a fire, because you've set it, it's then like conditional emotional support, because what you're almost saying is, I will not show you affection or emotion if you don't complete the task that I've set. But if the children set the task, but that is the thing, isn't it? If Miss stands at the front and goes, everybody today, I'd like you to light a fire. There's now an implicit thing that says if you don't light a fire,
the classroom focus again, isn't it? When everybody's going for one goal, and actually, when I run my forest school, everybody I say this is available, this is available, and it's always fire lighting, and it's always den building, and it's always a lot of things. And if you need any help with that, come and let me know. But there is no one specific.
There's no failure.
There's no children do that. They go for fire lighting and they can't light it, and I'm like, well, we haven't lit it today. Well, let's try again next week. There
will be a success.
Maybe it's because you're such young ones.
I've got a different approach to
it varies child to child. We all know there are some children that you go, you can't deal with this, and for the sake of this, it is better for me to help you. And there are some kids that I go, you've been coming here 3 years, right? I reckon if I leave you, you'll build a ladder.
So you're choosing. So you're setting the targets in your own head by judging each child with your knowledge of them.
Maybe not target. I think I'm trying to find. Have you heard of the ZPD?
Zone of Proximal Development.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's trying to. Yeah. So it's trying to find out what in my head, what I think is that area, and going, oh, actually, but not ever verbalising it. Not going like, oh, I think the level of difficulty for you is I'm going to give you wet wood and a slightly dodgy firelighter today, because that's the difficulty. It's just going like, okay, I think this is maybe the minimum amount of help that you maybe need. Do you know what I mean? And it's finding that. And then there are times where you go, no, I reckon if I mean, they're all reckons, aren't they? You can go, I reckon if I leave you and you fail at this, you will be so much more motivated and you'll get it. Or even this is frustrating you too much and I need to completely direct your attention to something else. Complete distraction. Right? We're not doing firelighting anymore. We're going to go and start the new game.
It's life, isn't it? You can't be successful at everything. You are going to fail. You have to learn determination to come back, try again another time. Or do you even just have a little rest, like you were saying?
Yeah, definitely.
And sometimes, we have to treat it as life. That's how it's going to happen. And sometimes, like you said, you can read the child and you can see that this might blow up into something, or they might just want to walk away from it. They just don't want to do it anymore.
And that's, it's as true for us, isn't it? Like, we all have crappy sessions.
But what I think is important is that even if they maybe don't succeed in that thing, you've got to point out a success to them, as something else that they did amazingly well at, or so that there is a positive connection.
There should be a success somewhere.
You
may not have managed that, but God, you really tried hard.
Or like, remember that great little den you built over there, and just...
Hi guys, just interrupting the conversation very briefly. So if you're enjoying the podcast, enjoying the conversations that we're having and the theories and ideas that we put forward, you can come join us face to face. We hold every month. We have an education retreat. So we have an optional night of camping followed by a full day of kind of learning, and it's split up into different focus things. So we're having a day on outdoor cooking, we're having a day on alternative behaviour management, and coming up the next one is November 1st, and we're having a full day working on early years play working, which is kind of making sure that play is as good as possible and how you can facilitate that. So it's going to be a really great event. And if you go to our website, it's childrenoftheforest.com, or go to our Facebook page, when you buy your tickets, you can use the discount code podcast, and that will get you 10% off the ticket price, which is a pretty hefty sum. So I'll leave it there and we'll get back to the chat.
Direct that.
And almost coming back to what you were saying about everybody finding their niche is like, maybe not accepting is quite a big word, isn't it? But kind of verbalising, like, okay. And I sometimes say to the kids, like, Gemma's much better at that than me. Or like, we do not pass stuff off between each other, but we just go like, oh, this isn't my skill set. Or like, the kids are always asking to do bow drill fires. I've done a bow drill fire once, and I will always say to the kids, I'm going to sit down and I'll do it with you. I've never done it. Like, I've never achieved it. I mean, I've done it once, but I've not done it in our forest school with these, and being honest and being, that like role model-y, I am modelling what life is like, and just going like, actually, I'm crap at some things.
I'm not the best carver, whistler,
Yeah.
but I can do it enough to show you what to do, and you might do it better than me.
Yeah.
You might, but I'm just going to show you how to go through it.
Yeah.
And do you think I wonder if maybe Forest School facilitates that more because there's such a broad range that if you go into the skill of like teaching people on fungi walks and mushrooms, you can become legitimately an expert in mushrooms. But I don't think anybody would consider themselves to be an expert in everything that, because you'd have to do knots, fungi, flora and fauna, all the child development that exists under the sea. We can't be experts.
No, and I think it's actually important to admit that you don't know everything. They'll say, what's that? And I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
We could, photograph it.
You show them the process.
Books. Do you know what I mean? We could try and find out. We might not know, and I do say, like, there are hundreds of fungus. It would be impossible to know it all.
Don't touch any of them.
So what do we do? That's what I say. What do we do until we know?
Lick it.
No.
But that's that honesty,
Taste test.
which I think if we're a lot more honest, we could be honest with children. Whereas, if you were a kind of a blagger of the world, you'd kind of make something up to make yourself look better, whereas that's not what we're...
I think you're encouraged to do that in teaching, though, in state education.
Well,
I think
I haven't come from any kind of educational background. So
they do in education think that you know everything. They actually believe you know everything.
And that you live in the supply cupboard.
My kids think I live in the woods.
Yes,
Everyone thinks I live in the woods.
Yeah.
What are you here for?
It's just the look.
I've just come to wash my hands and go to the loo, and I'm going back.
I actually get people who don't recognise me outside of the woods. If I because I'm dressed differently, I always have my hair up and my hat on and that sort of thing. And so if they see me out in town, they don't. And I'm talking adults as well.
Yeah.
Do you think of it as a? It's not costume is the wrong word, but it's almost like you put on certain clothes. Like we saw each other the other day in what we called civvies,
Yeah.
and I was just like,
Look weird.
you're not
Weird.
you're not in wellies and stuff.
Yeah, no, I hadn't really thought about it until I was sat in a cafe and one of the teaching assistants that comes out with one of my school groups kind of walked past me and I went, oh, hello.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, it is you. She said, until you spoke, I thought, oh, that must be Kay's sister. And I'm like, for goodness, I didn't even consider it until then.
You want to consider a life a crime, mate?
Yeah. No.
Going back to like positive moments and
Sorry.
Yes,
no,
we
I
waffle.
just
This is
I
what
just
we
had
do. We waffle and then we'll get
another
back.
thought, another question about like, do you guys have any moments along your journey that you remember as a kind of successful positive moment for yourself, as a like a penny has dropped in terms of your role? Because when I was quite early on, I remember having a sudden realisation. It was actually, I think, when I was doing my coursework for my actual level 3, and I had this moment of like, Forest School isn't a definite thing that I should be delivering, as we've just been talking about. It's actually about what you as a practitioner, what is your Forest School, what is your session going to be like? And there's no one size fits all. And actually I kind of had this penny drop moment for me at that time. Storytelling was very important, and I didn't need to feel like I had to be using tools every session, and it was like a kind of light bulb moment of like, you get that kind of imposter syndrome of, I've just done my training
I
and
think that's what
everyone's
training
like
does,
looking at me and, oh God, I haven't used knives yet. I really probably should be doing that for it to be proper Forest School. And like, no matter how much you are told that it's not about that, you work through your own stuff until you find your...
I think meeting in these groups has actually does really help.
Oh yeah.
With that, a lot. Personally, I came from a school background. When I first started, I found it really difficult not to interfere with what the children were doing.
Yeah.
And tell them,
so hard.
It might be better if you did it this way, but actually it's better
Stop
if you just
teaching.
leave them
Yeah.
to discover that for themselves, because they learn so much better that way.
And do you think that was a gradual process of you
It was a very
realising
gradual
that?
process, and I think I look back at it now. I've been doing it since 2007, so I look back at it and I think it was probably maybe a couple of years ago, maybe I looked back and thought, I've changed so much. I found me, just like I see every single child, I see them and who they are and all these other stuff, but actually I've changed. And it's not that I've changed into something that I'm not.
Yeah.
But I can see who I am, and the whole process has really helped me as well.
Yeah.
And I find that really interesting.
Yeah.
And now I consider myself privileged to be doing this job, to get up every morning and do a job I love so much. And I'm not saying I don't have mornings when I think, oh God, drag myself out of bed, and it's raining outside. But it's just a privilege and an honour to be doing it every day, and to feel like I'm going out there and, giving these children and staff this opportunity, to reconnect with with themselves as well as nature. I just look back at it and think, wow.
I think that is the key word, isn't it? Looking back is often how you find your successes in forest school. Is that end of
the reflective part is very important.
And it's like long-term reflection like you're talking about, but also I was thinking earlier when we were talking about moments of positive moments for the children in a session, or whether a child becomes fixated on a negative thing that's happened, like not being able to light a fire, that I guess the end of each session reflection is so important for that, for the children to think to reflect on their own positive moments in that session, but also sometimes each other's. So the way that you guide that reflection at the end is key to the children actually thinking about their own positive moments. And I've done with toddlers doing the thank you thing, so think about something or someone here that you want to say thank you to, and actually you can see how surprised some of them are when they say, I want to thank that person over there for doing this thing, and you see the other child going, oh okay, that was a thing I did without even thinking about it, and actually now I feel really good because I have had a really positive moment that I didn't even realise was important, but it was important to you, and now I feel great. That's important in terms of recognising the success of a session, I think.
I get a lot of satisfaction and feel very positive when the practitioners who come up with me say, oh, that kid's talking.
Yeah.
They don't say anything back in the nursery.
That's quite cool.
But they're talking away up here.
Yeah.
And I always think, yes, something's right then here, isn't it?
Yeah.
There must be a lot of successes when you're working like that in a setting where you're sort of working in tandem, aren't you, with other staff? Like they have them in the classroom.
They've
and then
had such a lot of learning.
But what I wonder is how many successes you have fostered and not known about because the kid always, talking is a really good example, but you have children, you come out and you go, oh right, yeah, and then it can be weeks later that someone goes, oh, does he talk to you? And you're like, yeah, he talks all the time. He's a normal kid. And they go, no, he never. And those things that all those little bits that you might not appreciate because we don't see the children 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Or stuff that parents come in and go like, oh, do you know what? They don't want to get messy at all at home, but you send them home covered in mud and
get their shoes off.
Exactly. But because they are, in a sense, we only see them in a forest school setting. We just assume that is the norm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I had a parent come up to me literally last week, and her child's been coming to forest school for a couple of years, out in the woods, and she came and volunteered because the parents take it in turns. And she said, this is the only time that I can ever get my daughter to go outside of forest school. She won't go outside, she won't get her hands dirty, all of that. And I had absolutely no idea because I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell that from any of the sessions over those years that I've been having her. Amazing. I just didn't know, and I was quite surprised.
My parents say some things to me just from running after school clubs that that's the reason that they'll come to school. It's the highlight of the week, and exactly that. Like,
doesn't that sense of responsibility fall on your shoulders then?
Oh yeah, it's a brief wave of euphoria, and then oh my god, me? You trusting me?
No, but I do in terms of like, oh crap, I better keep going then. Like we better not fold as a company. We better not nothing dreadful better happen because these children really rely on this. But in another way, I don't feel like it's anything that I have done. And we were talking about this in the car on the way here, weren't we? About it's not me, it's the children have, it's the environment, it's the place, it's the,
I think time and the space,
like
giving them this space and this like hours that they can do what they want.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
So I almost feel disassociated from it in a way.
Yes.
Because you're just part of this just happening, I guess.
It's like anything.
And they do it.
You can't help somebody unless they want to help themselves.
Yeah.
And so every person that comes out there has a responsibility. They kind of, they have that responsibility. They can engage with it or not engage with it. And yes, we're there providing. It's going back to that providing the opportunity. So we do have a hand in it, but without their hand in it, we wouldn't be able to do anything. If you see what I mean, they've got to take that on board themselves. If you see what I mean, I can't say I've ever come across a child myself who doesn't want to be there. I know other people have, but I've never had that experience.
I've had children who have been very frightened, very, very frightened. So a child in a preschool who again, I didn't know this until about a few sessions in, and one of the staff said, he's sick before he comes outside.
Wow.
He's sick. And she only really told me that, I think, at that point, because he was having a positive moment. She was going, oh my goodness, look at him go. He's left my side. He's not by any members of staff side. He's gone off with his friend. He wouldn't have done that 4 weeks ago. He literally is physically sick before he comes to forest school. And that really, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing or not doing that is making him sick before he comes outside? And I tried to reflect and think, obviously once you told me that, then I could think about ways that I could make the sessions, in any way less daunting for him. But who knows what was going on with him, about what it was that made him feel that way. But anyway, he got through it and got over it and came out the other side. But that was very very eye-opening. You don't ever expect that someone's going to have that strong a reaction to it,
No, absolutely not.
Well, on the mention of sick, shall we call it there? 'Cause I think it's always nice to end with someone chucking up.
Dinner might be ready soon as well.
Well, the onion barges aren't, because I'm cooking them.
Right. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
We'll call it there.
Thank you.
Bye.